Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. Okay, so today I want to share some epistolary novels. When this video goes live, the poll is currently up for January book club choices. And if you've peeked in the poll already, you know that it is filled with epistolary novels. So I have some to share that I have read. I have a bunch to share that didn't make the book club choice, and I'm not going to talk about the book club poll choices in this video. I'm going to save that for the book club announcement video like I do, every month we have a book club poll. So I am looking forward to reading an epistolary in January. I have a variety of choices. I'm going to do the ones I have read first, and then all the ones I didn't put, not all the ones, some of the ones I did not put on the poll. So, but first up, here is the main graphic for Epistolary January. This also dovetails with Anne's Read the Classics Challenge for 2025, which is to read an epistolary novel in January. So, the first box on the bingo board is Love Letters and Epistolary Romance. And then we have Lost Mail, a classic or a book by an author no longer with us. And then Free Shipping, a book that was free. Correspondence, a book containing letters between people, fictional or not. Airmail, set in a foreign country. Package, a book longer than 400 pages. I'm looking at the graphic, sorry. Journal, a book containing journal entries. And email, a contemporary epistolary featuring text and or email. So those are a very nice wide variety of prompts and the ability to make choices and the whole 9 yards. So I had so much fun doing the research for the book club poll. I wanted it to dovetail into, Epistolary January for Anne, and Jen over at Jen's Reading Life is doing a year-long read-along for the Unselected Journals of Emma and Lion, which is a book club poll choice, as you know, but I will link her announcement video in this video as well, because while I'm not going to talk about the Emma M. Lion book, it definitely fits Epistolary January. So, okay, that's the housekeeping. Let's talk about books. Okay, let's do the library books first. I have not read either of these, but they... Felicity, you're done. Apparently Chloe's not, but she's downstairs. So first up would be The Last Christmas in Paris by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. This is a entirely epistolary novel. It is set in World War II. It is set in Paris, so it fulfills multiple prompts. It is, however, not over 400 pages. I have not read this. It sounds very interesting, and I'm trying to get to it, but I don't know that I'm in the mood. So, we shall see. But I will eventually read this novel. Okay. The other library book is very short, and I talked about it in my library haul. That is the Noel Diary by Richard Paul Evans. And this is the first book in the series. It is very short. It is, not a challenging read. It's 281 pages, and it is diary entries, and it is set in the United States. Okay, those are the library books that I have. So let's do my own books first. Okay, next up, let's talk about the books I own. These are both classics. One is over 400 pages. They are both told in journal entries. They are both set outside my home country. And as you know, I've read both of these recently. In fact, I read them in October. First up would be The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. Yes, I still do not like this edition, but there you go. It is told entirely in journal entries. It is a murder mystery. It was a serialized novel. It is fantastic. And it would be, although it's chunky, it would be easy to read throughout the month of January, because it breaks itself so nicely into sections because it was a serialized novel. And I will link my videos on the books I have read, if I can find them easily this morning while I upload this. And I know for a fact I have a vlog for Dracula, and it is fantastic. It is not anything anybody should be terrified to read. It is told in journal entries. It is set in England, a little bit in France, and in Romania, Transylvania. It is fantastic. It is not over 400 pages, but it does fit several of the other prompts very nicely. Okay, so those are the ones I own that I have read. So let's talk about the ones that I have read that I either read on Kindle Unlimited, or they were a NetGalley ARC at the time, or a variety of reasons. So first up would be the Skymar series by Pepper Basham. Authentically Izzy, Positively Penelope, and Loyally Luke. I loved the first two books. I was not a fan in any respect of book 3. It was an absolute miss for me on every level. However, Izzy and Penelope are great stories. They're told in text and letter forms. Izzy is by far the most epistolary of the series. They're just fantastic, and they're romance, and they're very good. Okay. Next up would be the Chilbury Ladies Choir. I'm looking at my notes, wondering what something is. This is by, her name is on the cover. I always forget her name, and I don't know why. This is a World War II novel set in England. It isn't entirely epistolary, but it is epistolary in nature. And seriously, this coffee cup is not lasting the season. Heat transmits through the handle. I enjoyed this one. Some of you may not, given some of the situations. However, I was thoroughly enchanted. I listened to it on audio, which was a very great choice, because there is, in the version I listened to, there was singing when the choir was active. And I truly, truly appreciated that in that book. Okay, next up on my list is, I do own this book. I wonder where it is. It's probably in the other room. That is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Again, it's told in journal format. It's classic. This was a very middle of the road read for me. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I still, to this day, do not understand the hype around Frankenstein. So, that is okay. Next up. The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhorn. This was a library checkout for me earlier this year. I listened to the audio. It is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic until, for me personally, you get to the ending and I was like, no. The ending is, yeah, I did not like the ending. I appreciated the author's note at the end tremendously. I am not sad I read this book. It was a definite, incredibly enjoyable and engaging read. However, the ending, no. Okay, next up would be the Letters of Enchantment series, better known as the duology that is Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. These are the Spanish covers, which I vastly prefer to the covers I read. I checked these out from my library. These are a mix of prose and letters. It is fantasy. I thoroughly enjoyed these books. I absolutely loved them. Next up on my read list is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by... just flew out of my head. I read this with my physical book club before I bowed out of it. I will link that video down below. This is told entirely in epistolary form. It takes place in World War II on the British Isle of Guernsey. And it was completely enchanting. I have not watched the Netflix movie with... it's either Keira Knightley or... anyway, there's a Netflix movie that's supposed to be very good. I highly recommend this book. It is great. Bring some tissues for the ending. Alright, next up on my read list is The Matchmaker's Gift by Lydia Colburn. Trust the book, not what's coming out of my mouth. This is Jewish historical fiction. It is dual timeline. This was a library read for me. I absolutely loved this book. It tells the story of a Jewish modern day granddaughter who discovers her grandmother's journal when her grandmother dies. And she then goes, as she reads her grandmother's journal, you get her grandmother's story. And you learn that her grandmother was an emigre from Eastern Europe. And she has the matchmaker's gift. And matchmakers are generally men in Jewish culture. And her grandmother was a complete unwelcome anomaly in their community in New York. It was an absolutely beautiful story. I read it around this time of year, probably 2 years ago. And it is fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. Okay, the last book I have that I have read is one of my absolute favorite novels and novelists of all time. That is the autobiography of Henry VIII by Margaret George. It is a chunker of a book. I'm not going to lie. It is well over 400 pages. And while I could sit down and read it in a couple of days, this novel lends itself, like all Margaret George books do, very well to reading over the course of a month or however long it takes you. And it is fantastic. It is It is funny. It is moving. It is so well written and researched. It made me fall in love with her writing. And I read this when it came out. So it's been a very, very long time. And I am searching for another copy. I absolutely love this book. I cannot recommend this book enough. If you are at all interested in Tudor history, if you just want a big old chunky book to make your way through that's going to entertain you along the way, I highly recommend this book. It is a beautiful, beautiful book. Okay, now for the books I haven't read. I do own one physically. That is Evelina by Frances Burney. This was mentioned in several books I have read this year. I was so intrigued. I have picked up a copy for myself prior to even knowing about Epistolary January. This is entirely in epistolary format. It was written in the late 1700s, and I'll read you the back. Frances Burney's first and most enduring popular novel is a vivid, satirical, and seductive account of the pleasures and dangers of fashionable life in late 18th century London. As she describes her heroine's entry into society, womanhood, and inevitably love, Burney exposes the vulnerability of female innocence in an image-conscious and often cruel world where social snobbery and sexual aggression are played out in the public arenas of pleasure gardens, theater visits, and balls. But Evelina's innocence also makes her a shrewd commentator on the excesses and absurdities of manners and social ambitions, as well as attracting the attention of the eminently eligible Lord Orville. I am fascinated. I so want to read this. And this copy of the Oxford World Classic Edition comes in at 406 pages. So it fits many a prompt, and I am looking forward to this one immensely. I am just immensely looking forward to this one. Okay. So the rest I have pulled up on the laptop. So let me start there. Okay. First up is Things I Want My Daughters to Know by Elizabeth Noble. This is 384 pages, according to Goodreads. And I'll read you the blurb. How do you cope in a world without your mother? When Barbara realizes time is running out, she writes letters to her 4 daughters, aware that they will be facing trials and triumphs of life without her at their side. But how can she leave them when they still have so much growing up to do? Take Lisa, in her mid-30s, but incapable of making a commitment. Or Jennifer, trapped in a stale marriage and buttoned up so tight she could burst. 20-something Amanda, the traveler, has always distanced herself from the rest of the family. And then there's Hannah, a teenage girl on the verge of womanhood, about to be parted from the mother she adores. By drawing on the wisdom in Barbara's letters, the girls might just find a way to cope with their loss. And in coming to terms with their bereavement, can they also set themselves free to enjoy their lives with all the passion and love each deserves? I think it sounds interesting. And this is, well, this has not been a stage of life I have gone through yet, and I am not looking forward to. I would cherish nothing more than that from my mother. So, yeah. Okay, up next would be The Lost Letters of William Wolfe by Helen Cullen. This is 336 pages, and it takes place in Ireland. Lost letters have only one hope for survival: The Dead Letters Depot. Inside the walls of a former tea factory, the letter detectives work to solve mysteries. Missing zip codes, illegible handwriting, rain-smudged ink, lost address labels, torn packages, forgotten street names. These are the twists of fate behind missed birthdays, broken hearts, unheard confessions, pointless accusations, unpaid bills, and unanswered prayers. But when letters arrive, addressed simply to My Great Love, one long-time letter detective will face his greatest mystery yet, as his quest to follow the clues become a life-changing journey of love, hope, and courage. I think that just sounds so good. Dead Letters. It brings to mind the Hallmark series, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Okay, next up is a short classic, and this is a French classic at that. It is 272 pages. It is the third in the La Comédie Humaine, so the human comedy. It is the third book in the series. And it is the memoirs of two young wives. I'll read you the description. Two very intelligent, very idealistic young women leave the convent school where they became the fastest of friends to return to their families and embark on their new lives. For René de Maucombe, this means an arranged marriage with a country gentleman of Provence. A fine, if slightly dull man for whom she feels admiration, but nothing more. Meanwhile, Louise de Chaulieu makes for her family's house in Paris, intent on enjoying her freedom to the fullest. Glittering balls, the opera, and above all, she devoutly hopes, the torments and ecstasies of true love and passion. What will come of these two very different lives? Despite Balzac's title, these aren't memoirs. Rather, this is an epistolary novel. For some 10 years, these two will, enthusiastically, if not always faithfully, keep up their correspondence, obeying their vow to tell each other every tiny detail of their strange new lives, comparing their destinies, defending and sometimes bemoaning their choices, detailing the many changes, personal and social, that they undergo. As Balzac writes, René is reason, Louise is wildness, and both will lose. Balzac being Balzac, he seems to argue for the virtue of one of these lives over the other. But Balzac being Balzac, that argument remains profoundly ambiguous. I would, he once wrote, rather be killed by Louise than live a long life with René. If you have read Balzac, you know that is up his alley. Okay, this one I am very interested in. That is The Woman in the Library by Celerly Gentile. It is 292 pages. And I will read you the description. In every person's story, there is something to hide. The ornate reading room at the Boston Public Library is quiet until the tranquility is shattered by a woman's terrified scream. Security guards take charge immediately, instructing everyone inside to stay put till the threat is identified and contained. While they wait for the all clear, four strangers who'd happen to be sitting at the same table, pastime and conversation and friendships are struck. Each has his or her own reasons for being in the reading room that morning. It just happens that one is a murderer. And this came up as an epistolary novel. I do not know in what manner. I have not read anything by this author, but the description alone has me intrigued. So even if it doesn't fit beautifully for this month, I'm still intrigued. Okay, next up would be The Right Sister by Patty Dan. I have not read anything by this author, and it is 218 pages, so it is very short. It says it is an American historical romance. So, an epistolary novel of historical fiction that imagines the life of Catherine Wright and her relationship with her famous brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright. On December 17, 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright flew the world's first airplane at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, establishing the Wright brothers as world-renowned pioneers of flight. Known to far fewer people was their whip-smart and well-educated sister Catherine, a suffragette and an early feminist. After Wilbur passed away, Catherine lived with and took care of her increasingly reclusive brother Orville, who often turned to his more confident and supportive sister to help him through fame and fortune. But when Catherine became engaged to their mutual friend Harry Haskell, Orville felt abandoned and betrayed. He smashed a pitcher of flowers against a wall and refused to attend the wedding or speak to Catherine or Harry. As the years went on, the siblings grew further and further apart. In The Wright Sister, Patty Dan wonderfully imagines the blossoming Catherine revealed in her marriage diary, in which she emerges as a frank, vibrant, intellectually and socially engaged, sexually active woman coming into her own, and her one-sided correspondence with her estranged brother as she hopes to repair their fractured relationship. Even though she pictures Orv throwing her letters away, Catherine cannot contain her joie de vivre, her love of married life, her strong advocacy for the suffragette cause, or her abiding affection for her stubborn sibling as she fondly recalls their shared life. An inspiring and poignant chronicle of feminism, family, and forgiveness, The Wright Sisters, an unforgettable portrait of a woman, a sister of inventors, who found her way to reinvent herself. So, we shall see. Okay. This has almost no description to it. It almost made the book club choice. I am so intrigued by this novel. I believe I have downloaded it to my Kindle already. According to this, it is 414 pages, and that is The Expedition of Humphrey Clinker by Tobias Smollett. And this is written in the 18th century in England. And it's supposed to be hysterically funny. This story describes Squire Bramble's tour of the Britain of George III. That's the description. I will tell you, I did go search trying to find a physical copy of this book. That's how intrigued I am. And, well, good luck. I could not find one to save my life. I looked everywhere. So, you know, that's what happens sometimes. Okay, this book almost made the poll, and then I changed the poll, so it didn't show up. This is Confessions of a Curious Bookseller by Elizabeth Green. It is 483 pages, and it is quite controversial in the comments. So the protagonist is supposedly an annoying character. Very, very annoying character. So I will read you the blurb. A heartening and uproariously funny novel of high hopes, bad choices, book love, and one woman's best and worst intentions. Without questions, Fawn Burchell knows that her used bookstore is the heart of West Philadelphia, a cornerstone of culture for a community that, for the past 20 years, has found the quirkiness absolutely charming. When an amicable young indie bookseller invades her block, Fawn is convinced that his cushy couches, impressive selection, coffee bar, and knowledgeable staff are a neighborhood blight. Misguided yet blindly resilient, Fawn readies for battle. But as she wages her war, Fawn is forced to reflect on a few unavoidable truths. The tribulations of online dating, a strained relationship with her family, and a devoted, if not always, law-abiding intern. Not to mention what to do about a pen pal with whom she hasn't been entirely honest, and the litany of repairs her aging store requires. Through emails, journals, combative online reviews, texts, and tweets, Fawn plans her next move. Now it's time for her to dig deep and use every trick at her disposal if she is to reclaim her beloved business and her life. It's available in Kindle Unlimited, so for me, it is a no harm, no foul exploration. I get the feeling she's not a 20-something-year-old, and I can sometimes be difficult too. So I am interested in this book. So I will let you know when I read it. It is on my list. Okay, those are the epistolary choices that didn't make the book club poll. They are a mix of what I've read, what I want to read, what I have read. Have you read any of them? Any of them catch your eye? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.